And we're live. Hey, welcome back to this. We're doing something a little bit different tonight, guys. This is a new segment that we're calling Three Sides to Every Story, Yours, Mine, and Monday Morning. And yes, I stole that from Nuno Betancourt. And I'm not really calling it Yours, Mine, and Monday Morning because I have to change it enough that I don't get in trouble for that. But Three Sides to Every Story works perfectly. So what's Three Sides to Every Story? Well, Three Sides to Every Story is about what happens when you take three different perspectives, worldview, theologically, educationally, geographically, whatever that might be. We take two different people, and then we put a moderator in the third as a centrist, and we allow them to talk about a couple of subjects, and we just have a conversation and see how it goes. So we're going to try this tonight. I'll probably drive you crazy getting my head straight eventually. Hey, let me introduce our guests. You guys know all these guys already. To your far left, I think it'll still be to your far left, is MMA guru, fight analyst, Devin Miller. Devin, how are you doing tonight, brother?
I'm doing good, Chad, and I'm doing good, Anthony. We're deciding to do all this, and we're venturing into some new topics. And this is supposed to be three sides to a story, and left, right, and center. But even I think you would admit, Chad, that you're might be the centrist here, but you're still way left of me. So I'm going to be kind of in the minority of this group, and I'm fine with that. And I do want to just say, first things first, we're all members of the CRP, and we do like to talk about like these fist fighting things on the normal occasion, which Anthony's great at that with his boxing predictions. And Chad, you've really brought us all in together, and we've it's either been work with each other or separate. So we're having to work with each other, and we found out quickly that we differ on so many different issues. So the best way to, I think, to maybe build a bridge between us is just to do what we do and get on air, which is where we know each other from, and just talk it out, dialogue together, civilly, rationally, which is not going on a national scale right now. So, this is.
I appreciate that, brother. Just to say that, man, I appreciate what you're saying. I like where you're coming from, and it is always nice to be able to talk and hear someone's tone and see what they mean and hear what they mean in their voice rather than, I know I'm pretty snarky online. Let's put it that way. That's the side that comes out of me. And I'm very matter of fact, and I'm a little didactic, and folks that know me can take it, but I appreciate doing it in this form so that we can sort of build those bridges. I appreciate what you're saying. I'm picking up what you're putting down, brother.
So I guess that means I don't have to do an introduction to ASP, but for those of you who don't know, just in case, in the middle is Anthony Scott Piatt, currently residing in Bloomington, Indiana. Devin is in Marion, Indiana, and I am out in the sticks in the middle of nowhere. We'll just leave it at that. But I'm in Indiana, where we get nothing but rain thanks to global warming. But that's another topic, right? Okay, so let's get right into it. I think the first thing we should probably do is we should take just one generalized topic, and I'm going to ask each of you to spend, let's say, 5 minutes talking about your particular political point of view on that generalized topic. Does that sound fair to everybody? And by the way, no one knows what the subjects are except me, which I'm getting ready to make up off the top of my head.
You sold the hell out of this show.
So we're
really don't know what we're doing.
we're scripted. We're professionals here. We are not playing around. So let's do this one. Let's do the topic, because I know it's a hot topic right now. I know it's a hot button with Scotty. Obviously it's a hot button with me, and obviously it's a hot button with Devin. So we all have agreement about this one particular topic, but how do we handle it is a completely different aspect to conceptualize and converse about. So let's talk about the Nazis in the farmers market in Bloomington, Indiana, if they're even Nazis. I don't know them. I think I kind of know what I'm talking about, but I'm not gonna claim to absolutely know anything for an absolute fact, because I don't. I know where I stand on a personal level, but on a centrist level, I'm going to take it from the point of there's a farmers market in Bloomington, Indiana, home of Indiana University, of whom I am a graduate a few times over, and in Bloomington, the town is it monthly, I suppose, and
No,
and
it's every Saturday.
every Saturday once spring is in session, and
Correct.
and it is coming in to peddle their wares, to sell their food that they've grown, mostly organic, mostly whole grown food, homegrown. So it's a little more expensive, but it's cheaper to buy it. Having said that, my point really isn't all that. It doesn't matter that much for this conversation. But I'm going to let Devin take first shot at this, and I'll let Scott take a shot at it. So Devin, you've got 5 minutes to, first of all, just go ahead and cover the Bloomington Nazi farmers market thing. I know you're basically up on it as much as you need, whatever that situation is. The conversation really kind of comes down to, well, just because I said this doesn't mean I'm defending Nazis. And I think that's part of what we're trying to do here, is we're trying to build bridges rather than walls. So Devin, go ahead and take over. It's 4:15, go.
Well, I'm actually really not that up to date on the topic that you guys are talking about.
Oh shit.
I do know from Anthony's page that it's been something he's been very zealous about, and I know the kind of like the overarching controversy involved with it. So I'm not going to speak directly to that issue, but I guess we will just. And first off, I'm glad that we started with this topic, because I thought we were going to go back into transgender athleticism or something we've beat to a pulp. We've covered that, I think, for a while. We can take a break, but I'm just saying. But this is a top. I am going to speak a little bit more generally about where I am differing with Anthony on approach, and not necessarily in terms of what he's standing for, because I think that the repudiation of racism by our culture at this point is a good thing. I mean, it's something that we're seeing now, that we're not tolerating it anymore. We want that pushed out. I think that that's a great thing that I think common sense people on every side should agree with, that we should no longer be tolerating this kind of stuff. The issue that I have is with the left's approach to all sorts of issues that are not this radical. And what it's making me concerned about is that I'm seeing the beginnings of, there used to be book burning, now it's deplatforming. And we're starting to see censorship ramping up, and people embracing this as a good means to combat people that we don't necessarily think should be having the audience that they have. And what's scary about that is I really think it's going to lead to what we're seeing in China over there with social credit scores and these kind of draconian top-down analysis of the individual, to where the individual is unable to even repent from past positions that he once held, where he holds the wrong view, and that view is only governed by whoever's in charge at that time. The same methods that we use on our opponents now can be used against us in the future. And that concerns me, is that we're starting this effort of pushing people out, not letting them even speak, trying to get their books off of Amazon, trying to get them off of Facebook, Twitter. They're not allowed to have a voice. To me, it's insane that somebody like Alex Jones is off of Twitter and Facebook, but they still have people like David Duke and all these different kind of people on there. There's no consistency to it. There's no exactly, they're not really labeling who or what gets them thrown off. They just, hate speech is very vague. And it seems to be like they're really attacking the people who are more effective rather than the ones who are actually really radical. And it concerns me that just the effort, like I believe in protesting and people bringing awareness to people that hold terrible opinions. I'm all for that. My concern is them not even being allowed to have a platform, because those same kind of techniques could be used against people who are not that radical in the future, that are just differing. And we've seen that throughout history with totalitarian regimes, that if you differ from the status quo, well, now you're an enemy of the state, and you don't even have an ability to spawn a reformation in the country, because you're completely deplatformed. People can't get your books. If they catch you with their books, you're in trouble. You can't, and now it's all digital, so you can't even have a Facebook page. You can't have a Twitter page. You can't, in this case, set up at a farmer's market or whatever. So I don't know the ins and outs of that case. I know that they were involved with some, I guess, like alternative social media organization. Is what I gathered, something like a Reddit type of thing or something. I don't know. Anthony will probably fill me in on that, but and I guess they're linked to some white nationalist type of people, which that's not my fight. That's not something that I am out advocating for, trying to defend. It's just more the whole overzealous without thinking of the long term potential slippery slope to pushing people out of public discourse.
Excellent. Hey, so Scotty, so basically what Devin's saying is, if I understand it correctly, Devin, you're concerned about the idea that,
my bad,
as long as we're using it to defend against things that we don't like. But what about when people start using it to defend against things that we like, and they turn the tables on us? Because we've seen this, and I as a centrist lay dead in the center of this and have said from Jump Street, we need to let the law, and when they step over the lines of the law, we need to draw the line, but not until then. Scotty, you're kind of different on that. Go ahead. You got 5 minutes. It's literally 10 minutes. Go.
All right. Wow. So I want to answer some of the questions that Devin had. Devin, good response. I mean, I understand what you're saying, and I hope to speak to that and maybe set both of you guys at ease. I'm not trying to correct anybody. I'm just trying to share my viewpoint, and I hear what you're saying, and I want to avoid that too. And surprisingly enough, Devin, someone that isn't on your side of the spectrum, a good friend of mine here in Bloomington, and she's a gay woman, she shares the same concerns. Her concerns are, if we ban Nazis, what if somebody doesn't like gay speech or gay people vending at the market? Okay, but I can speak to that too. Let me back up real quick and start at the top, and I'll make sure I keep my timer on here and get this going. They are dues-paying members of Identity Europa, and they've been with them for a long time, for many years, and they're actually leaders of it. She's known as Volk Mom on YouTube. She meaning Sarah Dye and Douglas Mackey with Schooner Creek Farms. And they're dues-paying members of Identity Europa. She's known as Volk Mom, and she does podcasts, and they're actually pleasant to listen to until she says the racist stuff. We'll be talking about planting yarrow and whatnot, and then race is sacred. So I know they're personal friends of hers that have been friends with them for 10 years and said they changed. And then a couple of years ago that, yes, indeed, they started trying to recruit them into the white nationalist movement. Their name is on pictures on Identity Europa. One of the leaders came and took pictures of them, and they forgot to scrub their name from the construction material, and it is their yard. You can tell it's their yard and their greenhouse, and their baby is on there and whatnot.
Okay, Scotty, hey, Scotty,
let him talk.
Let me steer you a little bit on that. Try and avoid a little bit of that and get into what your particular on this is. Then can we go to that?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay.
So my stance is that first and foremost, there's a real human element to this. And we just had a farmers market community advisory board where a lot of people stood up and talked. And there were people of color, and there were Jewish people, and there were people that have moved here, and there are people that have lived here all their life that don't feel safe going to the farmers market, because Nazi is not a political thing or an opinion. It's a philosophy of genocide. And it's that simple. They feel unsafe at the market. And because these people are purists, they're not just separatists. They are, Identity Europa should be labeled a terrorist group. That's a federal issue, and they're not, because they haven't labeled a white nationalist as terrorist group. But let's twist it this way a little bit. What if they were ISIS, right? You donate to ISIS, it's illegal. So my gay friend is concerned too. Here's the line. The line is simple. It's genocide. If gay groups start wanting to kill straight people, then they're terrorists. But until they do that, they're not terrorists. They're not. Yep. Right? See what I'm saying? So that's where the line is. It's not a slippery slope. It's these guys are admitted, known Nazis with a mission of genocide. So my tactic is to boycott. And there are micro tactics within that, but the tactic is to boycott. The strategy is to remove them from the market. But the goal would be some long-term rules to protect them. And the problem is, she was the president of the Brown County Farmers Market. It's a private market. She lied to him about the court case. The FBI's outed him in court as well. Nolan Brewer, they vetted the synagogue bomber, vandalized it, had the bomb in his car. They vetted him days before. It's a really seedy deal. They lied.
1 minute, Scott.
Gotcha. So basically, the long-term goal is to have rules at the market. If the city can't do it because of First Amendment, which I doesn't think holds water, they can become a 501c3 and make the rules, because the private ones don't have to accept the Nazis. In England and 24 European countries, they ban Nazi salutes and swastikas. They call them terror groups. If you're a part of them, they're terror groups. Would we let ISIS or pedophiles vend at the market?
I got a question. I got a couple questions, and this will be brief. Won't even take 30 seconds. Number one, there is.
Sorry, guys.
I mean, I'm sure that you're aware that there are, and it's not that I sympathize with these people. There are white nationalist groups that are not Nazis.
Correct, but IE is not one of them. Correct.
Okay, there is. I was going to say there is white nationalist groups that are definitely not National Socialist by any means. Yes. Number two, is there evidence that they have a violent type of have they engaged in any sort of violence before?
So that's a great question, Scotty. Take us through what you had told me about this, which kind of actually started to get my clock ticking a little bit.
So here's the thing on that, Devin. Very good questions. Very good questions. IE, which is Identity Europa, which recently changed when they were outed, right? They recently changed to AIM, which is a crying shame because that's the American Indian movement since the 60s or 70s. Yeah. And now it's the American Identity movement. So it's sort of disrespectful, or very disrespectful, let's say. But at any rate, IE is known as, again, we can't call them a terrorist group because of the feds, but they're everything's short of that, and they should be called a terrorist group. So my point is, you can't be on IE's chat boards unless you are a dues paying member. So if you pay ISIS, you're a terrorist. You don't have to light a bomb or shoot a gun. If you pay ISIS, you are legally supporting terrorism, and you will be charged with terrorism if you give money to ISIS. If you give money to Identity Europa, you're supporting terrorism. They vetted and sent this guy, and they lied about it. They told Nolan Brewer they were brand new members. They've been members for 4 years. There's screenshots of Volkmom Sarah Dye talking to people, praising her as one of the new leaders of the movement. It's deep. I won't have time to explain it in 30 seconds, but she is a leader of the movement, and she recruits. And because she's not violent doesn't mean much, because it's in their playbook. We've uncovered their playbook, and their playbook is to be the nice, gentle, respectable people and recruit the other.
But as long as so let me ask you guys this. As long as they are nice, gentle, respectful people that have this, I don't know, putrid idealism, they haven't broken the law as far as I can tell. So
who did Charles Manson kill?
That's a completely different issue.
Saying,
We could talk about that, but it's not the same thing. I mean, you could say the same thing. Who did Hitler kill? Right? I mean, that's kind of what you're saying there. But Hitler instigated things. Have they instigated anything? And that's what I want to know. Are there any crimes yet that have been instigated? And if so, then a dues-paying member becomes. Then why has the United States government not put Identity Europa on the terrorist group watch list?
Let me
Go ahead, Devin.
Let me interject a little bit because I do have some comments. I just looked up Identity Europa a little bit and noticed that they spell it with a V, which that signals a little bit. But roughly 800 membership. They are neo-Nazi support. Their purpose is to support white nationalism and to spread it. So I'll give you that this year, and I would never identify with anything like this. Me and you talked on here once, Chad, about the role of government on these type of issues. Mm-hmm. And we get nervous when we watch something like Identity Report and we start seeing thought crime and pre-crime and all these kind of things. But at the same time, to back Anthony's point a little bit, everything begins with an idea. I mentioned that to you once before, Chad. If I spend all weekend thinking about how much I want a, double cheeseburger with bacon and cheese and, all this all week, eventually, if I've got the resources and the ability to do so, I'm going to go get that if it's on my mind. And when we're talking about an idea, actions always begin with ideas. And now we're talking about a group that's seeking to expand on those ideas. So I'm all.
Do we know that?
We apparently we know that on this. I don't know these people personally. I'm just now really in the loop on this stuff. So yeah, I mean, but is this the role of government or is this the role of personal activists to combat this?
That's an awesome question.
Real quick, I'm not done.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Anthony mentioned something about it being banned to do the Nazi salute and all this stuff across Europe. Well, it's also illegal in several countries to even investigate the Holocaust. And we're talking about not even radical historians who just want to, tally up, well, is this 6 million number, is that a little exaggerated? Simple stuff like that want to just kind of learn new clues about it, but maybe come from a certain ideology that, maybe they've questioned Zionism before in the past. And now now there's like this skepticism to even question the Holocaust out there. And you can be jailed for even denying thinking something. We're talking about having an opinion on something. And that seems to be a little bit down the line of, this is approved opinion and march to the beat of that drum or we're going to throw you in prison. And then they don't see the irony. Mm-hmm. That they're combating fascism, radical nationalism by saying that if you don't approve to our nationalistic standard opinion, we're going to imprison you. Doesn't that seem a little ironic? So I gave a couple questions in there about, the difference between combating these kind of things with social activism compared to government, but also this almost a double standard, almost like a hypocritical position that, we're going to start controlling thought while at the same time doing it because of we're fighting probably the most extreme example of thought control in history.
Okay, so ASP, let me ask you this then. Let's break it down into a couple of questions here. Number one, activism or government? Talk to me about that first. Take 2 minutes and talk about that. Maybe 3.
Okay. So, I will say that when I bring that up about those European countries, it's kind of like other discussions I have. There's a pendulum type of swing, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm not advocating for how strict some of those are. I'm merely saying that, look, if we can't even kick known Nazis out of our damn farmers market, people will eventually get pissed, and we're going to get some more radical laws than even I advocate necessarily. Now,
Oh,
I want to point out that a lot of these laws, like the couple in England that named their baby Hitler and are in prison now, it's not because they named their baby Hitler. It's because they were part of a known terrorist group, the same as if you're part of ISIS. Okay. So, yeah, maybe you should get a slap on the wrist for doing Nazi salutes or whatever. This is a gray area, and I'm not gonna die on that hill. Okay. What I'm gonna say is, if they're actually supporting known groups that are put on a terror list, and you're still giving it no, even if you don't agree they're terrorists, if they're on a terror list and you know it's illegal to give them money, don't give them money. Or
that's illegal. That's illegal.
You see what I'm saying?
Okay. Yes.
So
yes.
that's
Okay.
my point there, is that we could get there if we can't even kick these guys out of a farmer's market and keep the people safe that want to have their kids there in their Jewish grandma. Come on now.
Right. Okay.
You know?
I agree with you on that, Scotty. But let's go to the next part of Devin's question, which to me is the one where this is where I find a lot of problems with this whole issue and how to attack this, or maybe not to attack it. I'm not even sure. I really don't know what to do. So I kind of sit in the middle and go, well, Scotty's got a lot of good points, but Devin's right. We could talk about this with the electorate college, and it would be the same sort of conversation. So tell me this: how do we attack this and avoid the slippery slope that we're talking about, that your LGB friend that talked about as well, and that many of my friends have talked about since all of this has started happening?
Well, I mean, okay, look, let me put it.
Can I say real quickly?
Sure.
Obviously, none of us are supporting Nazis.
Correct. Correct. Yes. And I appreciate that. I mean, and I understand what you're saying. And Devin, I want to say to you, look, I'm a fan of history, and I don't think we shouldn't not investigate anything. I do know there's some people that are, Holocaust deniers that really are just causing muck a lot of places. But any true historian that wants to bring out the good, the bad, and the ugly of these different situations, of course. And I don't think the world academically is against that, whether there are a couple of states. And there are some people who kind of get on people's shit list, if you will, because they're known Nazi deniers. So if somebody is a Holocaust denier, I should say, and if somebody's a known Holocaust denier and maybe a white supremacist, maybe we don't give them access to our.
Let him finish.
Maybe that's the guy we don't give unfettered access to our museums and whatnot over a true academic,
So let me ask you this, Devin. How do you respond to, you are now, because of your position on this, you're suspect? How do you respond to that?
I think it's ridiculous. I haven't given any reason to be suspect on any sort of ideology.
Well, I've been called suspect for much less than what you've said, and I was not only insulted but utterly shocked by it. So I'm asking this, and it doesn't matter who said anything. I'm not naming names, nothing like that. I just simply want to know, because that's really the next step in what your questioning is do you become suspect then? And if you are, who's decided if you're a suspect or not, Devin? So I'm asking you, Devin, as somebody who's involved in this conversation and you're concerned about the slippery slope, take me from there and tell me who draws the line? How does that work? How does that make you feel? Tell me that. Give me that next.
Well, real quick before I don't lose my train of thought, I was trying to interject with Anthony that because you brought up about people that are known agitators in Holocaust denial, and that is true. But there's also been people that have been banned from investigating certain things, like the claims that about German POWs that were brutalized after the war by the Allied forces. And that's a pretty much historical accepted fact. But even investigating that today is deemed just off limits, because history is not only won by obviously the winners, which I know that's typically something that you'll hear from neo-Nazi people, which is ridiculous. But also at the same time, certain things about history are kept a lid on because they're not allowed to be, really brought out, and there's too much of a cost to somebody's career to even investigate or to report on them or to
Yeah.
publish a work on them, because it's not something popular to bring up and to risk a lot of things on. And when I'm just, this is kind of where I'm at with this, is I don't disagree with either one of you guys on the premise, on the position, on the morality of this position. What I'm a little skeptical of, coming from more of a libertarian, conservative type of position, is right now we're looking at 800 members. I guess there has been some indications of violence and stuff, but the potential for the chilling effect on other things, that is what concerns me, is that this is going to get broadened out from just the extreme examples of radical white nationalism to holding different kind of positions. And as somebody who, I actually do agree with you, Anthony, that religion is definitely being squeezed in America. I'm not somebody that actually believes in America that religion's thriving or something, but as a Christian, that concerns me a little bit, that there's going to be certain opinions that you can't have, because I have some opinions that aren't popular, that aren't status quo, that if we're going to start, even like it starts somewhere and branches out.
But speaking of where it starts, I think this is a very good time, because we've kind of gone down a rabbit hole, and I like where we're going, fellas. But if I can claim a minute and a half here, Chad.
Please.
Thank you, sir. We're talking about where it starts, Devin, and I agree. We don't want slippery slopes. But again, where it starts is with the founder of Identity Europa. I have a quote here I'd like to read from you. And I want a trigger warning in advance. And I'm going to say words that I don't say out of my mouth unless I'm reading them to show this emphasis. Okay? Trigger warning. This is Eli Mosley on the War Room, March 20th, 2017, the founder of Identity Europa. This is who Sarah Dye and Douglas Mackey are giving money to as dues-paying members. I work in HR firing niggers and spics all day. Before that, I was in the Army and I got to kill Muslims for fun. I'm not sure which was better, watching niggers and spics cry because they can't feed their little mud children, or watching Muslims spray their brains on the wall. Honestly, both probably suck compared to listening to a kike scream while in the oven. Eli Mosley, founder of Identity Europa. This is the scum that we are dealing with, okay? I'm fired up. I'm passionate. I care about the fucking people that this scares, okay? I'm not mad at you guys. I care about people, and that's why I seem angry. Woo! I'm sorry. This is bullshit. Okay, guys.
Thank you. Let me jump in real quick and say, first of all, thank you for bringing that to my attention. I was not aware of that. I want to say that I was not aware of Identity Europa or any of the other stuff that was going on until Scott made me aware of it through this conversation that we were having on his Facebook page. From there, I said, I don't buy anything until I see the evidence. And so I'm not going to prosecute these people. And they're innocent until proven guilty, not guilty until proven innocent. That's the way we operate in the United States. We operate on the idea that you're an innocent human being until somebody proves otherwise. I think what Scott said just proved it very, very clearly. And I don't think there's any question about that. I got on board with Scott several days ago, if I'm being a little more honest, and I'm not just playing this role that I'm kind of just a centrist here. But it's hard for me I'm in a tough spot because I am considered a centrist in most ways today, because my far left liberalism is not what progressive far left liberals are today. I just want to and make sure that everybody has health care, and kind of let the rest of it is, I guess I could even be considered a little bit libertarian on. But I do identify as a far left liberal. So I want to say that once I heard that and what Scott just read to me, wow, that's utterly shocking and repulsive. But Devin, go ahead and give me your take on. Talk to me about. Take me down the rest of this now. Okay, so after what Scott said, this does really the same thing. This connects them the same way that a what do they call them? A pod is connected to ISIS here in the United States. It's the same thing. They're a pod now. So this what is it? Sugar Creek, what is it?
Schooner Creek Farms.
Schooner Creek Farms is literally a Nazi pod in the United States. They're embedded here. No different than, and we should treat them no differently than we should treat an ISIS embedded pod. Do you believe that, Devin, or where are you at on that?
Well,
and sorry if I'm yelling. I got a little heated there too. Sorry about that.
Nah.
Wow, that's really inciting.
I mean, those are definitely disgusting comments. I mean, and it's completely, immoral and disgusting. And I don't think it's anything, rational, good, morally decent people would ever say about another individual. But, well, you asked if we should treat this like, I'm trying to decipher what you just asked me. But
okay. Let me ask you this: Is it any different than David Duke?
Well, way different. I mean, I'm not some defender of David Duke, but
of course not.
But David Duke, I mean, he did have time in the Klan, I think, and but I'm pretty sure David Duke's main angst these days is against international Zionism and organized Jewish organizations more than it is like a white nationalist racist front. I think he's more interested in like Jewish issues and stuff, which, there's some things to say about that kind of stuff too. And I think they do kind of go hand in hand as, just kind of referencing, you tend to find the same thing with a lot of, I've met people like that, that are real interested in like the international Zionism thing. And behind closed doors, they got swastikas and stuff all over their house and stuff. And, I've seen it. But you said should we compare these people to ISIS, and I mean, there's obviously an ideology there that's that's a hateful ideology, and that's why they're probably put on hate groups and stuff. I don't deny that should happen. Comparing it as organized as something like ISIS with the kind of military. I mean, when we're looking at ISIS, we're looking at a organization that's literally taken over entire states in the Middle East. I mean, we're talking about something that's super organized and has the potential to literally spread and boil over into the Western world, if not.
And you don't think that this does?
Not with the kind of, and that's something that we and you, us three, are going to end up talking about, I'm sure, is about like America being systematically racist and a racist country, is because this is so repudiated these days. I mean, back in the 60s, this would have been something that would have been hot. I mean, this would have been something to been really concerned about if this was the kind of militancy we were starting to see revved up toward minorities. That would have been something at a time when there was a lot of, let me talk real quick. There was a lot of animosity toward minorities that would have been concerning. Today we're living in a time, but also in like 1959, we had like 3% of the population that actually believed in interracial marriage. I mean, we were still very, very much segregated. Today, we got like over 90% of people support interracial marriage. We've got African Americans, and we got African American judges and senators and congressmen and governors and presidents and sheriffs and stuff all across. Even Middle America has black people institutionalized in all sorts of different levels of supreme affluence and supreme positions of authority. And I don't believe that this kind of rhetoric and this kind of ideology can even gain a foothold in the America that is today, unless it starts to get pushed out into the fringe hardcore and attacked and not given a voice, not letting them. I would almost argue that it would be better to let them air their dirty laundry. Let them say what they really think, because then they're going to get a lot of backlash. We start banning their books, banning their platforms. That has been shown time and time again. It's going to start having people that are uninformed on the whole situation in general that are going to be like, well, maybe they got a point. Maybe they got a point. Maybe they're saying something, because then the conversation is not going to be about what they said from their perspective. It's going to be, I'm censored. And
okay, so Scotty,
they don't want you to hear what I have to say. And it's like throwing gasoline on a fire.
Okay, so let me put this into the political spectrum then, since we're kind of doing this politically as well, are we igniting not only a fire that's already been, in my opinion anyway, stoked by in some degree the cabinet of the President of the United States of America, but are we stoking that by trying to silence that? Are we having the equivalent of book burnings here, Scotty?
Okay. First off, I tell you guys, I'm liking this conversation. I want to say there's things I probably should respond to that Devin said, but I'm weary. I'm weary, brothers. This has been a topic that's been hard on me for a couple of weeks. I have friends that are having terrible times with it. It's bringing out different issues and divisions, and I'm weary, guys. I'm gonna have to ask for a part 2 soon, but I want to just say a couple of things. I appreciate the conversation. I want to say that there are 14 known white nationalist organizations in Indiana today. Okay,
that's scary.
There's parties here in Bloomington. We have Nazi parties in Bloomington, Columbus. There's a link that we can share. I believe Wish TV. If you look up, Nazi groups or hate groups in Indiana, you'll find a link there. So my point is, you can find these things. They are happening. Steve King, who's in our Congress, is a known white nationalist. Steve Bannon, who with the alt-right, website, Breitbart and whatnot, was one of Trump's guys. Alt-right was made up on 4chan so they didn't have to say Nazi. Let's get real here, guys. But at any rate, my point that I wanted to say is I'm not for banning books. I'm not for burning books. I'm not for those things. What I am for, unapologetically, is a boycott of the specific Nazis in my specific town at my beloved farmers market. I am absolutely for that. When we talk about the other things, do I think they should be rules to be kicked out? Yeah, I wish they could have a rule. Private farm market, 2 of them have already kicked them out because they're not city run. So yeah, I applaud them being kicked out of those private markets. I understand the city has issues. So these are things we have to wrestle with. And I'm trying to figure out, by listening to lawyers on different sides, where we fall on that. But I am solidly for the boycott, and the rest of the stuff, there's a middle ground with me, and I'm not for burning books. Okay. I'm not for burning books. So that's not me. That's not where I'm coming from. I'm just talking about first and foremost, a boycott. Yes, I want some of the other things. Yes, I think we could and should do a bit more with our rules, but yeah, so that's about what I have for the night. I want to say thank to you guys for a good talk. If there's a little bit more to wrap up, Chad, I don't want to steal your thunder, but I just want to tell Devin, I appreciate the conversation. We're coming at it from different angles, but I hear you, brother. There's some things I can respond to in part 2. And Chad, thanks for facilitating this, making it happen. And that's about what I got. I got, one blood, one love, people. This is it. We're all one. We're all one.
I agree. I agree with you in every aspect of that. We're all one love. And I completely agree with the idea that boycotting is the way to go with this. If they do something illegal, then at that point we need to make legal action and maybe even seek reciprocity for some of its victims. I'm not sure. But certainly these are things that we can talk about on another time. Devin got you were pretty tepid on whether or not you believed in the idea of institutional racism being quite as dramatic as what it used to be. And I might argue that institutional racism is probably actually worse today than it was 40 years ago, simply because it's so covert now that there's no ability. No one's out. Mm-hmm. No one's out. Everyone's undercover. So, Devin, if next time, how about we do that on part 2? Devin, do you have anything to wrap up? I don't want to cut you off before you. 2 minutes before you wrap up, we'll call it quits.
No, I would just simply say that I'm not going to ever sit in judgment of somebody that's being zealous to protect the the reality, in my opinion, that we're all created in the image of God, and that God has made us all of one blood. I am not ever going to sit and say that this is a bad cause to fight for. That we should be educating people and pushing away from people who want to bring us back into a time where we were irrationally discriminating people out of ignorance. So we find common ground there. I think maybe our tactics, I think maybe our concern about the severity at the moment might be a little bit different, but at the same time, I understand what an idea can do. I understand what an idea taking footholds in the mind of men. There's a great book written about the French Revolution and all the secret societies that were involved in the American and the French Revolution, and really during the era of Enlightenment. It's called Fire in the Minds of Men, that you guys should definitely check out. And it's all about, ideas starting covertly, as you just were describing, in unhuddled areas, and being influenced by whispers around the culture until it was too big to contain. And we saw the same thing in Nazi Germany.
Yes, sir.
So
yes, we did.
I definitely understand the zeal. And I'm not affiliated with any sort of white nationalism. It's not really my fight. Of course. And I do want to just say one last thing, just to set up the next debate. I do not believe that nationalism necessarily has to be some kind of ethnocentric nationalism. And I think that that's something we can take up next time about, when we look at Brexit, we look at maybe the rise of Trump in America, that necessarily just taglining the word nationalist to racism isn't necessary, and it's not even historically accurate. But we have seen nationalism turn into that, where it's all about our national identity is going to be wrapped up in some kind of ethnic-based centrality here. So I think we found a lot of common ground. I hope that on this on this episode we build some bridges here. So
yeah, buddy, I appreciate it.
So hey, listen, guys, I appreciate you both being here. We're at 45. Got to get out of here and go do their own thing. Join us again. This is the CRP, the Cage Rage Podcast. Check us out on YouTube. Check us out on Facebook. Check us out on Twitch. Hit the subscribe button. Follow us. Share this. Comment. Let us know what you think. Tell us all about it. We're not asking anybody to send us money yet. We're just asking you to talk with us. Join the conversation and be part of this. The Cage Rage Podcast is here to stay. We've got 400 and some videos at least. Go back through the website, go back through the YouTube channel, go back through the Facebook page and take a look at all of it, and you will see for yourself where we stand on a lot of different things, mostly combat sports. But this has been Three Sides to Every Story, and that is ASP and Devin Miller, and I am Chadillac, your host, and I am grateful for everybody coming tonight. Thank you guys so much. This has been an enlightening time for me. I very much appreciate it. Until next time, namaste.